We're going to get started here again. Next, we're happy to have Eric Ryan, co-founder and CEO at Olly. Eric makes soap. Show of hands, who here also makes soap? You got the market. It's really nice smelling soap too, by the way. He and his high school buddy Adam started the method of making soap that they employed in 2001, and they built it into a global industry leader for both design aspects as well as sustainability. More recently, he shifted from soap to supplements with the launch of Olly. And one of the things that he's going to share with us, and it's variations on some of the themes, but from a different perspective, about how to think about design and branding in the new world of healthcare. So please welcome Eric Ryan.
Thank you. Good afternoon. All right, who's excited to talk about soap and vitamins? Really sexy stuff. So I actually started my career here in Minneapolis working at Fallon in the mid-90s. And I'm going to kind of walk through, I look at everything through the lens of both being an entrepreneur, but in advertising, I worked within consumer, in the planning department, and really understanding both consumer motivations and trends. And so as an entrepreneur, it's really everything I apply to creating a business. So I want to walk you through a little bit of the method story, even though it's not necessarily healthcare. We thought a lot about it almost as healthcare, but it really set the stage for how we've thought about and built Olly. And then from there, I just want to break down a little bit of how we think about applying design and branding in the world of healthcare. So as you heard, I make soap. How many people here have used Method? All right, thank you. And it looks like we have a little upside, which is great. So most entrepreneurs, you often hear the story of starting from a place of like frustration or passion. I take a very different approach, which is about finding a white space. I'm not very passionate about cleaning. I don't love doing the dishes. I don't love mopping floors. But what I do love is design and building brands. And I was working on a different project that took us in the grocery store, and I took this photo back in 1999. The category really hasn't changed that much. And I just started seeing how big the cleaning aisle was, yet it was a sea of sameness. And so that was kind of the clue to dig here. And as we got into it, I was looking for, my whole thesis was find a big category, figure out the cultural shift that category missed, and in between is the business opportunity. So as we started digging into it, the thought was really think about these products in terms of lifestyle and lifestyling of the home, which was becoming really big back in 2000 with the arrival of IKEA and home and garden television and Pottery Barn. But as we dug into it, we realized there was another big cultural shift, which is like you actually pollute when you clean. You actually use poison to make your home healthier. And we looked at the number of childhood poisonings that occur every year from common household products. We realized if we were ever fortunate enough to be successful, we'd leave a legacy of harm. And this other cultural shift, of course, was wellness and sustainability. And nobody was thinking about it in the toxic in cleaning products. So I guess we're taking credit for it because we haven't found anybody who did it first, which was the idea of to really combine high design and deep sustainability. But similar to healthcare, like at the end of the day, it's not as much about the technology or the business model. It's not only the insight, but also trying to change consumer behavior. So we wrote this business plan. You know, we're like two guys living in a dirty flat. By the way, our podcast of How I Built It just dropped yesterday on the Method Story. So two guys in a dirty flat trying to take on these major multinationals of Clorox and Unilever and P&G, who I like to call P the motherfucking G, who have like a 150-year head start on us. And we have to also do it in the space of green cleaning, which back in 2001 was a pimple on the industry. So the only way we were going to make this business work is we had to change behavior, and we had to get people to buy a green or a natural product who otherwise never would. So this was our first ad we ran, which I think we felt just naked people is probably a good way to start. But what we were trying to do is create scarcity. And also, I'm a big believer in never tell, show. So most people, when you clean with toxic cleaners, you put on your team building exercise sweatshirt from 2003, your rubber gloves, because you don't want this touching your skin. But with Method, we always wanted to show that it was healthy and safe enough you could choose to clean like this. But at the end of the day, when you launch a new brand, chances are it's going to be premium price because you don't have economics of scale. So you got to find what's scarce. And for us, we saw fun as being really scarce in the category. So every company has an elevator pitch, and our elevator pitch was Aveda for the home. We wanted to take what you would find in personal care and bring it into home care. Those great fragrances, more emotional branding, great design. And that was the big idea that we went out into the world with. It was a little bit of an awkward start. We launched in the spring of 2001. Adam and I pulled together what few dollars we had. We went door to door at all the independent local grocery stores in San Francisco, sold it in. We didn't have money for marketing, so I would just do demos in store, which I'm still not sure why I was standing in the liquor aisle. I just think anybody who was shopping for wine was way more interesting to talk to than shopping for cleaning products. And this was also my way of doing consumer research. So we started scaling the business up. We went local, then we went regional, and then we went national. We needed a national partner to make it work. We closed our Series A, and we took some money from some very powerful and slightly scary people. And we told them we'd get Target. You know, we saw that they love design, we love design. Like, we thought it would be just a great, great match. Came here to Minneapolis. First meeting, you know, it went okay. They didn't like the name. It's like, you're Target, how do you not like method? They didn't like the size. And finally, you know, the buyer, he's like, guys, he's like, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a snowball's chance in hell. So we're like Dumb and Dumber. You're like, so you're saying there's a chance? And as an entrepreneur, the road forward always looks better than the road backwards of ultimately not succeeding. So we were starting to work with Karen Rashid, very famous industrial designer, and our thesis was we needed industrial design to elevate the experience, really set us apart from competitors, and make it harder to knock us off. We just had finished, so we used Karam as the carrot to get a meeting with marketing at Target, who then invited the buyers. And just in time, we showed up with our first Karam concept. We passed it around in front of the room, at which point I was realizing I was probably pitching a sex toy as a dish soap. And we really wanted to change the experience. So the idea was, instead of flipping over your dish soap, it comes out the bottom. So it's the first invert package. And this really made a statement to Target, ultimately when it launched to the press, that we were going to approach the category very differently. Even though it was a huge risk, it ultimately really helped us. You know, I'm a big believer that ultimately, you're not an entrepreneur unless you're scared going to work every day. And about 4 years ago, Adam and I were both getting to the point where we're like, we're not scared anymore. The company was doing really, really well. We were surrounded by great people, so we decided that it was time to start moving in a different direction. But before we did, we had the opportunity to make a huge, you know, probably our proudest thing. We got big enough that it was time to build a plant. And we call it the Soapbox, and we wanted this plant to be an absolute expression of our mission, our values. So we had a no cornfields rule, even though it looks very rural. We wanted to go where the jobs are. So we built this in the inner city of Chicago. It's the first plant to be built there in 35 years. We're in a community, Pullman Park, that desperately needs jobs. And it is the most sustainable manufacturing facility created today. It's got its own wind turbines, solar trees, and just an incredible culture inside the plant. It's really fun to see men driving pink forklifts. But the other thing we did is we partnered with Gotham Greens. We created the world's largest rooftop greenhouse on top of it that creates a fresh harvest of food every day in Chicago, both to be sold locally as well as given away from the community. So after we completed this, Adam and I were really kind of eager. He went and started Ripple, and I was here helping Target create their Made to Matter program. And so we were trying to identify brands that really aligned with that you know, millennial mom, and we couldn't, you know, nothing was coming through in the supplement aisle. So I started walking around in the aisle and realized, like, again, white space. So you had an aisle where people were literally stressing out trying to choose something healthy for them. And sometimes I would look like maybe I knew what I was doing in the aisle, and people would start asking me for help. So that was the kind of clue, you know, dig here. And as we got into it, I'm like, okay, what is the cultural shift the category is missing? And very much we believed it was the idea of the millennial consumer and lifestyle and how they relate to this category. And so we landed on 3 ideas that we thought we could really shake up the category. One was just improve the shoppability and make this, I talked about stealing from the personal care aisle to bring into the home care aisle with Method. In this case, we want to steal from the beauty aisle and bring into the nutritional supplements aisle. 2 was this idea of expanding demographics and really being the first brand that would go after a millennial consumer. And then 3, build brand power. So the way we thought about it was starting everything you see with Method 2, for us, everything starts with the product. And I very much believe that to build a successful company, you start with a great culture, and the products are just a souvenir of that culture. And if you get the culture right and you get the products right, sales and marketing get a lot easier. So with Olly, we looked at the category like, oh, well, everybody's round, so I guess we're going square to be different. And then we realized square made a lot of sense. It merchandises very cleanly. It allows you to tell a better story of a user experience, so you flip on each side and you can designate whether it's here are the benefits or here are the instructions, how to use it. But the other thing we saw was at the time, everybody was really selling the ingredients. They weren't selling the benefit. So you sold melatonin, that was for sleep. You sold biotin, that was for beauty. So we created these proprietary blends and then laddered them up to the clear benefit. So when you look at the Olly section, majority of what we sell is really based on a very clear benefit. And then from there, when you have great packaging, bringing it to life and merchandising makes a lot more sense. This is just examples of the type of displays that we go to build and bringing lifestyle into it. And we, again, kind of going back to this idea of brand power, brands were really small on it. So taking from the beauty aisle, we made the cap, and we chose a brand name that was friendly, because everything in the aisle felt either pseudoscience like Centrum or very folksy like Nature's Garden. So we just wanted a name that felt really friendly, and that's how we ended up on Olly. And then we made the branding very bold to give it more confidence. And as we started looking at how millennials relate to health, and I feel like this will get repetitive very early because everybody knows these patterns at this conference of what's happening, but millennials very much think, of course, of health as part of a lifestyle. And it's really interwoven into their life, and that's what we wanted to do with Olly. So we started looking at the old beliefs of how the category was set up and the new beliefs of millennials, and we got confident, like, you know what, like lifestyle is a really big idea. And often when people talk about health, they will say, I'm trying to live a healthier lifestyle. And in a lot of categories, that's considered frivolous, but in this category, it's so important because it's truly, lifestyle is truly how you change behavior, and changing behavior is how you have an impact and help people be healthier. So what we also want to do is be very focused. So we looked at millennials, we're like, okay, what categories within supplements specifically are most relevant to them, and what can we really focus on and own? So sleep, happiness, obviously the sense of optimized self, so we just launched a Focus product. Beauty within is a really big one. And even when we launched our protein, the idea that strong is the new skinny. And so we've built it around these areas, and this is what we're really focused on building within our brand. From there, we started building the marketing. And you'll see we do 2 things. Like, we're running national TV. Our latest media flight just ended. It'll be back soon. And we did these very lifestyle campaigns focused on these specific benefits. This was the print we ran, and then we graduated up to television. So we are choosing some traditional forms of media, because there is no more efficient way to build a brand very quickly. But we've also put these a lot in pre-roll and digital. But then to really reach that millennial, and even we have teen products now in Gen Z, we focus very heavily on influencers, Instagram. And it goes, again, back to that packaging and the design. Like, it's got to be Instagrammable and something that's worthy of really sharing online. And I want to go back to this idea, though, of culture. Like, a lot of this stuff, I don't think it's rocket science. It's pretty easy. But it's really hard if you don't have the right culture. This is our Olly headquarters. It's called Camp Olly. When I started the business, I could never have anticipated that our office would have a camping theme, and pink canoes and bears would suddenly become like these internal icons for the company. And I think, so much of culture is giving the space and letting the culture evolve naturally. And we put a lot of effort into hiring the right people. But at the heart of our culture is this probably really simple idea. How many people here are familiar with the idea of design thinking versus business thinking? So as you guys know, within design thinking, I think of this very simply. It's about having a company that is both artists and both operators. And there's so few companies in the world that do this well. Like, you know, Apple's probably one of the few that have incredible imagination and creativity, but yet can run a really great, predictable business. And particularly within healthcare more than any place, this is super important. So the way we structure the company and the culture, you know, from the highest levels, our creative director sits as a peer to our CFO. We bring everything we can in-house. So all of our creative, our design, formulation, we have a confection scientist, which is a fancy way of saying a candy scientist, which is clearly the coolest job in the world. And we have all these people under one house, and we base, you know, even again, going back to where we put the soapbox, I thought heavily of like, you know, what location really represents this brand. So we're based in a national park in the Presidio, which is at the foothills of the Golden Gate Park. We're in an old military warehouse where they used to bring trains through. And yes, it does have mice and occasional mountain lion, but it really sets the tone for the idea that we're creating a lifestyle brand, and we have recess every week, and we do things that really allow our team to live that lifestyle, because ultimately you want to have that distance of who you are and who you're creating for to be as short as possible. You know, I think it's truly the only way you can lead the consumer is you kind of have to be the consumer yourself. So we've really built the company around this, and then when we collaborate with retailers, you know, the buyers are sitting there with the person who did the design or created the formula, you know, the real craftsman of the company. And just kind of wrap up here, you know, when I look at building the idea of a lifestyle, I think there are just, you know, 3 big pillars to getting it right. But again, this is hard to do if you don't have the right culture. Health, you know, bringing in great design. And, you know, even when you hear the word health, it comes with emotional angst of like, how's your health? And I think design is so important for reframing that. You know, a picture's 1,000 words, right? Seeing is believing. And the power of design to really quickly change how people relate or think about health is just essential, for particularly in everything we just heard on Gen Z, which was a great talk, and everything we just heard from Zeus Jones of how these other brands are doing it. You saw through all that. It was great design. The second piece of it is aspirational marketing. And, you know, you take those rules of what happens in beauty and fashion. Like, you don't ever want to mirror your audience back. You want to set an audience that is aspirational to them. And I think Hims is doing a great job. And, you know, topics no guy really wants to talk about. They've turned it into something that you're kind of proud to show off that you're a Hims customer. And I think they've been so impactful. I would love to understand how incremental they are to these categories. I bet they're getting a lot of men into the categories that otherwise would never have gone into before. And the last piece is frictionless experiences. Living in San Francisco, and I think the founder of One Medical was speaking. He's in our YPO group back in San Francisco. And, you know, like, I actually look forward to going to the doctor's office there. It is so easy. The experience is great. And we've heard a lot about the retailization of health, but I think so core to that, of course, is great design, bringing in the aspiration, and making it frictionless as possible. And the last piece I'll finish with is, you know, I look at what we did with Olly and with Method, and we're launching a third company here, and it's going to be based in Minneapolis. It launches next April. And it's going to be in the healthcare space, and we chose Minneapolis because there's so much great talent here. It's also, office space is a lot cheaper than San Francisco. It's getting like ridiculous to start a company in San Francisco. But we've already put together a team of 5, and I've been so impressed with the caliber of talent that we've been able to start to pull together for this new brand. And it's going to be very much in the same way. Like, if you look at any major problem in the world, it's because we have too much of something, right? We got too much carbon in the atmosphere. We've got food that has too much calories and sugar in it, therefore leading to obesity. Like, it really is not a problem of scarcity today, it's a problem of surplus. And that same problem is as we relate to anything within the world of health, particularly for me, trying to sell products that are healthier for you in a store environment. So I think at the core of what we do is the skill of trying to make decisions really easy for consumers in a world of truly overwhelming choices. And with that, I hope you guys all buy Olly, because we have a big forecast we're trying to hit this year. So we will take all the help we can get, and thank you all so much.